portion of today's video is sponsored by Audio. Razer. Just when you think things can't get any worse than that Cobra mouse release, they go and release a keyboard like this. And totally redeem themselves! Yeah. So we got the Black Widow V4 75% here today. This one is black, obviously, but a white colorway is on the way, and one thing's for sure, this is not your regular Razer keyboard. It's been a pretty interesting year watching the world of custom keyboards and the world of gaming keyboards overlap, thanks to products like the Wooting 60HE and the Azoth from Asus. Gaming keyboard fans now care more than ever about customization, the feel, and the sound of their board, and custom keyboard enthusiasts still aren't satisfied with basically anything. Relax, I'm kind of kidding. A few headlines: it marks the return of Razer's orange tactile mechanical switches, it pulls it up to 8,000 Hertz, and it's hot swap. Oh, and it sounds like this right out of the box. This is a level up for Razer in the same way that the Azoth was for Asus, and there's a lot to show you, so we're gonna speed run the boring shit today and get to the good stuff. 75% layout, duh, so arrows and an F-row, multifunction media roller which feels very satisfying with 2 additional buttons, full chroma RGB of course with side lights for a little underglow on the desk, aluminum top with just one subtle Razer wordmark kit on the front edge for branding, plastic lower with dual angle flip down feet, no wireless, but detachable USB-C with enough room in there for custom cables, 5 different onboard memory profiles, a magnetic wrist rest, and a dual branded keycap switch puller. You'll need that puller for these double-shot ABS keycaps, not PBT like we see on the Huntsman line, but the legends won't fade due to the double-shot process. If you are planning to replace these, we do have a few keys here that are technically non-standard, but they've become a lot more common recently. If you're going to specifically replace these with Razer keycaps, the Phantom sets include these keys, the older Razer PBT sets don't. You'll also need this puller if you want to replace these nuts. These are the newest gen of Razer's orange tactile mechanical switches. This is going to be a pretty polarizing choice here as a stock inclusion because most people equate gaming with linear switches. I like these. It's no secret that I like tactiles. They're lighter feeling than you'd expect from a tactile, so they work just fine for me for gaming. These feel smooth, even when you hit them off axis. They do lack the internal sound dampening that we see on Razer's yellow linears, but again, I like the sound. I think it gives them some character. Actuation is 50 grams. The bump starts almost right away at 0.3 millimeters. They actuate at 2 millimeters, and the total travel is 3.5. They do have a box stem design, so they're nice and stable, minimum wobble, again, even off axis, and still compatible with any MX aftermarket keycaps. They are factory lubed, pretty thick and pretty thoroughly, actually. The rails and the bottoms of the springs are lubed. You certainly can open these like you would any MX style switch if you want to lube them yourself, but for most people, I think they're going to feel and sound just fine in their stock form. They're also 3-pin, but don't worry, Razer did include support for 5-pin hot swap here, which is great to see. These are north-facing sockets because they're designed to work with shine-through keycaps. RGB is still very much a hallmark of Razer boards and most gaming boards in general. The included stabilizers are plate mount, and they're factory lubed as well. They're also an MX style, which can be a bit easier to work on versus the Co-Star style that we see in some of their boards. And because this board is hot swap, you can remove these to tune them or replace them completely without having to take your board apart. Just remove the switch and then push the little tab toward the bottom of the stab and rock them out topside first. If you do that, you'll see there are also stab pads under them on the PCB which dampen the stabilizer sound. You can remove those if you want. But there's something else hiding under there too. This PCB is drilled to accept screw-in stabilizers. Now the Azoth was the first to do this, but this is still really surprising to see on a big brand gaming keyboard. Challenge accepted. So everything we've seen so far, replacing the caps, replacing the switches, removing the stabilizers to tune or replace those, all that can be done without opening this board and voiding your warranty. The stuff I'm going to show you next does require me to open the board, and that will void your warranty, which is actually pretty common. But first, one of the biggest questions I get on the channel is what song is that or where do you get your music? And the answer to that is Audio, the sponsor of today's video. The right song choice or sound effect combined with the right footage is how you create a visceral moment that people can really connect with. It's how you take something like this and turn it into a moment like this. Audio has a huge catalog that they're always adding to, and it spans a lot of different genres, so you can find something that's going to work for your project, regardless of what kind of content you make. Plus, they have a really detailed but intuitive filtering system, so you can get right to what you need. And this is music from real artists, not generic, royalty-free stock tracks. Their Audio Pro plan is their best value. It's a yearly subscription that gives you access to the entire catalog of music and sound effects, and code BADSEEDTECH saves you 70%. That brings the total cost to only $59.70 a year. That's less than $5 a month. And the licensing is super easy too. Whatever you use in a project while you have an active subscription is cleared forever, even if you choose not to renew. Forget generic stock music. Stop wasting time looking for royalty-free tracks. Click the link in the description to save 70% and elevate your next project with audio. So to open a gaming keyboard like this is usually a process. You're gonna have to pull off random keycaps looking for screws. You may have stuff hiding behind case feet. No, none of that. To get in here, you have 6 very visible Phillips head screws. The one behind the cable port, you will have to punch through the little warranty cap there, and then you're in. There's no hidden clips or anything like that, but you need to be really careful when you open this because there's lots of cables in here and everything's connected. You'll have a ribbon cable under the top right where the media controls are, and in the bottom you'll have a JST connector for the daughter board, which feels wild to say, and then a big wide ribbon cable down there as well. The ribbon cable ports just flip up to release. You can probably just use your fingernail. All right, a big one here. The plate on this board is not aluminum or steel like you would expect to see in a gaming keyboard. It's FR4 or fiberglass composite. This is a top tier choice. It feels good, it sounds good. I would love to see this become more common. How's it mounted? Thought you'd never ask. Poron gasket mount. Yep, Razer made a gasket mount board with an FR4 plate. It's not flexy or bouncy really, it's still pretty firm, but it's really soft on bottom out when you're typing, and you can clearly see this in action if you press around the sides of the key bed. It does have standoffs attaching it to the PCB, but they seem to only be around the edge, and you would have to remove these with like a Dremel if you wanted to. So we've got like 3 different layers of sound dampening in here too. One is between the PCB and the plate, which you would expect to see. The other is a thin piece of foam in the very bottom of the case, which is also pretty common. But the third is a tape mod, a factory installed tape mod on the back of the PCB. It's like this thick fire retardant tape because evidently masking tape isn't gonna cut it for international safety compliance, but it sounds exactly like what you would expect from what's probably the most common way people mod their keyboards. Crazy. For stabilizers, I went with TX stabs. It's my usual go-to. This is a standard 1.6 millimeter PCB if you're curious. So 75%, 8,000 hertz polling, gasket mount, FR4 plate, 5-pin hot swap, plate or PCB mount stabs, plate foam, a tape mod, and it's easy to open. That's basically a full vertical of custom features in a Razer keyboard that you can walk into a store and buy at retail. That is major surprising. I gotta stress too that the only reason you really need to open your board and void your warranty is if you wanna move to PCB mounted stabs because the board's already sound treated really well. All right, so what would you expect to pay for this board? $279, $249, $219? If you guessed $189, you're right. The white version will get you for $10 more when it launches, but I love what's going on here. Razer has given us a really solid pick for people that do want to customize their board but are fans of the Razer brand or just of RGB in general. I know it's not cool to talk about it in public, but I know you're out there. And by doing that, they've also indirectly given us a pre-built gaming keyboard that's really solid right out of the box with no modding, making it ideal for somebody that wants to just go get a keyboard and doesn't want to be bothered with upgrades. Compared to the Azoth from Asus at its new lower price of around $230, it basically comes down to plate material, whether you need wireless or not, and would you rather have Armory Core or Synapse as your support software. The Wooting 60HE at $175 has been dominating the gaming space for a year now. You can case swap it currently, but we're still waiting on plate and stabilizer alternatives. And yeah, I do personally feel like Hall effect is the future for competitive gaming, but a lot of people are still held back by that 60% layout. Wooting making a 75% might completely break the industry. So honestly, I'm kind of hard pressed to find anything negative to say about this board. It's not wireless, and I guess it doesn't have the optical switches that we see on the Huntsman, but I like these switches. Knowing the market, I think the biggest complaint will be that this board isn't shipping with linear switches. Now, Razer has announced add-on packs for $25 per 36 pack, which in itself isn't a bad price. But as this board uses 81 switches, that's a $75 add-on, so I know some people are going to be disappointed with that. Regardless, this board feels really good stock. I get a ton of these gaming keyboards through the studio, and I can tell you there's not a gaming keyboard out there from any manufacturer that sounds as good as this one does stock. That includes the Azoth and the Wooting 60HE. And the fact that you can do most of what you would want to do to this board without voiding the warranty is a major W. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm loving the shift that we're seeing in the market right now. Dexter, my guy, you killed it. Great job. I think these are available for purchase by the time you see this video. If not, just check the description or the pinned comment for all the latest information. If you got any value out of today's video, please drop me a like or consider subscribing if you haven't already. Big thanks again to Audio Today for sponsoring today's video. Click that link to get your first year for only $59. That's it for today. I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.